if you deprive yourself and deprive yourself and deprive yourself, eventually your primitive cave girl brain is going to win out. And you're probably going to reactively overeat more than you need just because your brain is ticked off and deprived. So if we kind of lean into it and say, let me just get some good balance going, starting in the morning, include the right, healthy kinds of carbohydrates, eat enough protein, like stay ahead of your hunger. Because we have this super unrealistic expectation around things like willpower, which never favored human survival ever.
No.
We have a lot of smart people here in the Boston area. And I always tell them, just because you're really smart doesn't mean you can trick your primitive cave girl brain that's like several million years old. It's not like what you're doing.
Welcome to Cut the Crap with Beth and Matt, the world's #1 no bullshit health and fitness podcast.
Are you ready to cut the crap with your diet and exercise, get strong as fuck, and build a healthy relationship with food? Then you've come to the right place.
Let's go. If you'd like to support us in the podcast, join our Patreon where you get exclusive content, which consists of monthly workouts you can do at home or at the gym, monthly challenges that are either strength, habit, or mindset based, and access to over 100 plus low-calorie, high-protein, family-friendly meals. These are all designed by a professional chef who is certified in nutrition. These recipes are already in MyFitnessPal for easy fucking tracking. New recipes are also added each week.
We believe that fitness is for everyone, so this is our way of getting you started on your health and fitness journey at a price most everyone can afford. So what the fuck are you waiting for? We'll see you in the Patreon.
Hi, Hillary and Liz. How are you?
Hi, Hillary.
How are you?
Hi,
We are
Liz.
so excited to have you.
Oh, we're excited to be here.
We're going to talk all things menopause, which I'm so excited about because I am going through it right now myself. And I know that a lot of people that follow me as well are too. And I am so excited to talk about like the myths that are spread about menopause and, things like that. So
Good.
if you'd like to first introduce yourself and tell us who you are and things like that.
Sure.
My name is Hillary Wright. I am a registered dietitian. I have lots of jobs. I have a short attention span. So I do they all involve getting in the trenches with people in really difficult circumstances. So I am the director of nutrition for the Wellness Center at Boston IVF, where I take care of mostly women, sometimes men, trying to conceive and having trouble. I also work part-time at the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute in Boston, where I take care of people before, during, and after cancer care. And I'm a freelance writer. I wrote a book about a condition called PCOS, or polycystic ovary syndrome. And I wrote a book about diabetes prevention called the Prediabetes Diet Plan before I partnered up with Liz here on the Menopause Diet Plan.
Amazing. Thank you, Hillary.
Master
You're
of
wearing
all
lots of hats.
trades there. Yeah.
She picks all the difficult topics.
All the different subjects. I'm good with stressed out people.
Yeah.
Right.
So, hi, Liz Ward, and Hillary and I have actually known each other since college. We met in organic chemistry lab where we tried not to blow things up.
Yeah.
And we didn't. We didn't. But
Unsuccessfully.
yeah. I mean, so glad those days are over.
Yeah.
Did see patients for many years, for like 15 years. And then I started to do more nutrition communication. So I'm a writer and a speaker. And I've also written a book about pregnancy called Expect the Best, Your Guide to Healthy Eating Before, During, and After Pregnancy, and a woman's health and nutrition expert.
Wow, love it.
You're in the right place then, because we love talking about this.
Right.
Yay.
So what made you to decide to partner up and, basically start an Instagram page about menopause, considering you have all these trades?
Well, we had forever been talking about doing a project together at some point. Because we've known each other for so long. And then, life got in the way. I had 3 boys, she had 3 girls. And we first started talking about collaborating. It really dates it because we originally talked about a radio show that we would do someday.
Great.
Called Shut Up and Eat.
Nice. I love it.
But then, time went by. And then we both came to this point in our life where we were both starting to experience all the perimenopause stuff, which we were agreed that we thought the perimenopause stuff is actually more challenging than actually finally getting over the finish line. So, we both had this women's health expertise. We were both writers and we like to work together. So we found our project. It's they say write about what you know. So that's what we did.
We also found a huge gap because when we were having issues and we were asking each other, is this happening to you? Is that happening to you? Because we went through perimenopause at exactly the same time. We couldn't find any, like a good book or a good website or anything like that. So that was one of the reasons why we said, let's do the research ourselves and come up with what we think as dietitians, as health professionals, as women's health experts would be the best advice for women going through the menopause transition. So there was just a total lack of resources.
Yeah, there really was. And I feel like there's more and more resources coming out because of pages like yourself.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if it's because of us. I think menopause is not as taboo as it was before because now the celebrities have discovered menopause.
It's having a moment.
It's having its moment.
Okay.
Hopefully it'll come out from the shadows and always be, something that you can discuss openly as another stage of life.
And we wanted to be the voice of science and evidence.
Yes.
The voice of internet hoo-ha that all it does is make all of this sound worse than it needs to be.
Right.
And more difficult than it has to be to eat decently. So, yeah, we're all about the science.
Yes. I feel that there's a lot of fear and scare tactics when it comes to the menopause. And, people, as soon as they turn 40, they're messaging me like, oh my God, I'm so worried. I'm so scared. I need to get a handle on this now. It's like, okay, let's settle down now.
Yeah.
It's okay.
And then there's a lot of language around that too. Mastering your menopause, mastering your metabolism, as if you have total control over your body, which you don't. When you're in your 40s, that is a good time to think about the next phase of life that's coming up. It's great to kind of get your ducks in a row and clean up your act, if you will, however you can, so that when you start to go through those changes, which is basically, a loss of estrogen, then you're better prepared. And, Hillary and I feel sheepish sometimes saying that, our perimenopause transition was not that bad. And we don't like to say that because everybody else is like, oh my God, I can't sleep. I'm having mood swings. I'm having hot flashes, and everyone experiences it differently. But we have a sneaking suspicion that being in, as good of health as you possibly can, going into it may actually be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's an important point to say. Of course, when you're upset and suffering and disgruntled and pissed off about things that are affecting your life, you're more likely sometimes to be vocal about it. So I think to constantly talk about the menopause transition like it's just hell on earth is really not helpful to people. So it's not denying that there aren't women that are really suffering and need resources and need help. But we're about trying to embrace the things you can actually have some influence over. And we really advocate for trying to get on that, earlier, like starting in your early 40s, because if you try to sail through your 40s doing the same things that you did in your 20s and your 30s, it's probably going to start playing out differently. So sometimes women don't really start thinking about this until, menopause is just a point in time where you haven't had a period for 12 months, but perimenopause is, 4 to 10 years long, you know what I mean? And stuff is happening all throughout. And like I said before, Liz and I, we complained a lot more about perimenopause than actually getting over the finish line.
Yeah. And you don't even really know that you are in menopause, correct me if I'm wrong, until after you haven't had a period for 12 months. So you can literally think you're still in perimenopause and then you haven't had a period and then you're done, but then into the next phase of, postmenopause.
Some women will go, I have a friend who went 11 months without a period and then got a period.
Oh my God, I would
technically reset the clock. But prior to menopause, your periods get all whacked out. Things change. And so people are, and that, again, that's, I think, what I mean when I talk about, I thought that was much more miserable dealing with a lot of, your periods go, closer together, farther apart, heavier, lighter, everything is, it's like puberty in the opposite direction.
What I heard from you there too was you essentially being more proactive versus reactive with these with this thing, right? Because it's a lot harder to play catch up and take care of it when it's happening rather than just doing some things ahead of time.
Yeah, you're right. And, the average age of menopause is 51 to 52-ish in this country. But women who have some risk factors for heart disease, let's say higher cholesterol, higher blood pressure, they actually, in the Framingham Heart Study, reached menopause earlier. And you want to keep that estrogen for as long as you can. So in doing all the preventive measures, the things that you would do anyway, like to keep yourself healthy, you may actually go through menopause with fewer symptoms because you're healthier. But you may also, get to that 51 to 52-year-old mark of natural menopause.
But things start happening way ahead. Like one of the things we talk about in this book is some data from a study called the SWAN study that found that the average woman starting in her mid 40s gains about 1.5 pounds a year until about 3 years after menopause where it levels out. So that tells us that there are things going on related to this transition that start to affect calorie balance and make it easier to gain weight and all of that a lot sooner than you actually hit menopause. So again, a lot of our messaging is around you need to start looking far ahead of that to try to mediate some of that stuff, which is always going to be easier than letting the horse out of the barn and then trying to
close the
rein it
door.
back in. And also realizing, like Liz said, there's got to be some acceptance that you can't micromanage every aspect of this.
Right.
The fool's errand, and all it's going to do is make you stressed out all the time.
Yeah. So what are some things that women in their early 40s, late 30s can start thinking about as they head into this time in their lives?
Well, I think they need to know what's going to happen to their bodies or what may be happening even in their early 40s. And that's just some basics about the way the body's work, going to work during your 40s. So you're going to have less estrogen, and less estrogen may mean that if you gain weight, it's going to go to your belly area. So there might potentially be more belly fat when you didn't have it. So also, are you strength training? Are you exercising regularly now during your 40s? Make your muscle now, get your house in order, as I was saying, by making sure that you're getting enough of all the nutrients that you need as a woman who's approaching menopause. So enough calcium, enough vitamin D, enough fiber, a low saturated fat diet.
I can't believe you didn't say protein.
Protein.
We love protein talk.
She thinks I'm obsessed
Wait
with
for the
protein.
P word.
It's coming.
Yes.
The big P.
And,
Big P here.
Yeah. They're very big fans of protein. So
get your fucking protein.
And, but really maybe like what I see you guys doing with people and trying to get them to change the composition of their diet, like getting a lot of that refined carbohydrate out and making sure that there's enough complex carbohydrate and fiber and just all the nutrients that you need, starting to get them now and getting set so that when perimenopause does start, it doesn't throw you for a loop.
Right.
You said something interesting there too about carbohydrates and the refined carbs versus the complex carbs. What type of a role do carbohydrates have in perimenopause?
Okay, that's your nutrient. That's her obsessive nutrient.
She likes the big C.
She's the P word.
Yeah.
So carbohydrates, Liz and I, we'd be dating ourselves to say that when we became dietitians, fat was like public enemy number one. And then we realized it's not that fat is bad for you. It's about the two Qs. It's the quality and the quantity. Where's it coming from? How much are you eating? It's the exact same thing with carbohydrates, because carbohydrates provide glucose, which is the primary fuel for all of the cells in the body. And the one thing I think that people don't often appreciate is even though our muscles use the most glucose, because we have a lot of muscles, our central nervous system, gram for gram, burns twice the glucose of any other tissue in the body, which makes sense because nature figured out, your brain's the most important organ, fuel the brain first. So nature really tied our brain nervous system function very closely to our blood sugar levels. And it likes stability. It likes kind of reinforcement that the food supply is fine and the brain likes carbs. So if the brain is burning twice the glucose gram for gram, when women start doing wacky things and demonizing all carbohydrates and cutting them all out, they often end up in this place where they're just thinking about them all the time because the brain doesn't like that. So we just say, listen, there's a huge difference between whole foods-based carbohydrates, mildly processed carbohydrates like Triscuits, whole wheat bread, ultra processed foods are a totally different category. So, those are food's for fun and people can occasionally do whatever they want. But, at this phase in life, people have been kicking the can down the road in terms of their diet quality. Like, do you eat any whole grains? Are you adding beans to your diet? Are you taking the time to eat? Like, I see this all the time. Women are great dieters until about 4:30. And then the whole thing blows up because their brain is kind of irritated about the lack of carbohydrates. So we talk a lot about trying to balance carbohydrates by educating people on the ones that have more nutritional value because they retain their fiber, they have vitamins and minerals, natural antioxidants, all kinds of good stuff. Pairing that with protein, lots of fruits and vegetables so that you feel satiated by the things that you're eating. But women are really prone to just thinking carbs are the devil and taking them all out. And and I try to explain to them a lot. And in both my populations, including the oncology, the cancer treatment people, like if you're not eating enough carbohydrates, your body's going to go after protein for calories. If your body's burning protein for calories because protein's not protected by other sources of calories, you're basically throwing out the baby with the bathwater. So that's what balance is all about. Serve all needs by looking at these visuals that are pretty simple, but all provide an important kind of function.
There's so much carb fear. I mean, just in the comment section alone, and I start to wonder, it's like, okay, people really feel that they have an aversion to carbs. No, my body can't handle that. It's like, well, exactly what does that mean? Like, what is your body doing when you're eating these things? Maybe you can fill me in on some people that, besides having celiac, what would be the reason why someone would have a reaction, and would there be a reaction to carbohydrates?
Diabetes.
Well, you know what I think? So this is another thing too. And sometimes it can be this like slippery slope between I feel this in my body and the risk of developing disordered eating.
Mm-hmm.
Like people oftentimes will say, well, when I eat carbohydrates, I get bloated.
Right. That's a popular one. Yeah.
Well, okay. Food, circulation redirects your digestive tract and you're going to experience some distension in your abdomen. Like, we always laugh about like when people talk about the tryptophan and the turkey at Thanksgiving. It's like, no, that's not what's making you tired. It's your circulation is actually in your gut and not in your head and your arms and your legs. So, I mean, I think people feel like the only normal feeling of a body is a body that has no food in it. And a lot of times that when people over restrict and then they go at it because they're over hungry, carbs are what the brain wants. So if people wait until they're over hungry and then they overeat carbohydrates, and then maybe depending on the kind of carbohydrates, their blood sugar might kind of shoot up and then crash. And maybe that's what they mean. Like, I don't like that feeling. But all I know is that, we talk to people and, try to encourage people to focus on what can you add to your diet to improve the quality of your life and how you feel. People feel better in a lot of ways. And there's a lot less talk of, I can't handle that. I can't handle that. But I always get nervous when people start like, oh, I can't handle carbohydrates. Like you said, what exactly are you talking about?
Right. Like, mm-hmm.
And their idea of carbohydrates might be potato chips or something too, right? Instead of the complex carbs that were not going to say good carbs, but the healthier
Wrap
carbs.
A cake. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Not to make you feel good.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, the bagel video that I made, the amount of hate towards a bagel. They're like, well, you must have not eaten the rest of the day. I'm like, because I had a freaking bagel. I mean, they're like, you must have had water and veggies. I'm like, actually, I had a lot of other meals besides water and veggies.
Yeah, she had a bagel for breakfast and
it's kind
people
of
went crazy.
I know.
The internet loves to lose their mind about that.
Very scary to
kind
me
of stuff.
that people are that damaged about.
It's very scary. It's sad, actually.
Put so much bandwidth on.
Well, it's like a lot of things that happen on the internet. It's dealing in the minutia rather than seeing the big picture. And I think it's human nature to fixate on the details. And I think that that's hurtful. I mean, it's really harmful in terms psychologically and physically, because there's absolutely nothing wrong with eating a bagel, whether it's whole wheat or white bread or whatever. Mm-hmm. And we've got to see it all in the context of the entire diet,
right?
Not just every single food that you put in your mouth.
Mm-hmm.
I talk a lot to my clients about proactive eating and reactive overeating. Like if you deprive yourself, eventually your primitive cave girl brain is going to win out. And you're probably going to reactively overeat more than you need just because your brain is ticked off and deprived. So if we kind of lean into it and say, let me just get some good balance going, starting in the morning, include the right, healthy kinds of carbohydrates, eat enough protein, like stay ahead of your hunger, because we have this super unrealistic expectation around things like willpower, which never favored human survival ever.
No.
We have a lot of smart people here in the Boston area. And I always tell them, just because you're really smart doesn't mean you can trick your primitive cave girl brain that's like several million years old. Not like what you're doing.
For sure. And now you mentioned there, Liz, the white bagel and the whole wheat bagel. I'm curious, is that when you look at somebody's diet, a client's diet or something, do you look at, like, if they're eating the white bagels, do you try to suggest them to move towards the whole grain, or you look at other ways of getting in, like the fiber and things like that then there?
That all depends, right?
Yeah.
Because the suggested intake for whole grains is at least 3 servings a day. And the minimum on a 2,000 calorie diet, I'm just giving this as a framework, is 6 servings a day. So what the other 3 can come from, white pasta, a bagel, or, another refined grain. They can. But if all 6 servings came from refined grains, I'd say, you know what, there could be a way for you to work more of the whole grains in there. And we're not really encouraging whole grains just on the basis of fiber alone. I mean, they have a whole matrix of nutrients that I would want people to get. So again, it's all relative. And sometimes I think relativity is very hard, and moderation is very hard to grasp, especially when all these facts are thrown at you all the time on the internet and you're trying to figure it all out. And the reason why I love your reels and everything that you say is because it's a similar message over and over and over again, which people have to hear.
Yeah, they need repetitive. Yeah.
Hear it. It's really necessary. So again, no, I wouldn't go picking on any single food unless I saw it on a diet recall, all day long, every day. I'd say, we need some more variety here.
Yeah. Variety.
I also think people can think about, how do I eat my bagel? If I eat a bagel plain, am I hungrier sooner? If I eat my bagel with eggs, or if I put peanut butter on it, or if I do things that give it more staying power, maybe that will be helpful to me. I mean, the fact of the matter, if there's metabolically a good meal to overeat, it's probably breakfast.
Yeah. Oh God. Full of carbs. It could be full of carbs, but because people don't, it's real. I think it's difficult to get a lot of protein at breakfast. I think you have to make an effort. When
I would agree with that.
I don't mean impossible, right? I mean, but you do have to make more of an effort. I mean, it's not like you're going to eat 4 eggs, at the same time. You have to come up with a variety, like I see on your plate, Beth, is all different kinds of things contributing to the protein, but it can be done.
Yeah. Little planning.
A little bit of planning.
Mm-hmm. It's probably not going to happen at a donut shop either. You know what I mean? So a lot of it is like, well, what are you eating for breakfast? Well, I'm not really. So again, if we keep talking about bagels, is the issue bagels, or the issue is you're not really taking time to eat, and then you're going through a drive-through and this is what they have, and you don't like that fact that it doesn't last you very, these are the behavioral things around. Yeah. People eat as a result of behaviors. So that's what things like registered dietitians, just to give folks like us a plug, we'll actually sit down and talk to people about, like, the first thing we do is tell me about your life. You're the expert in your life, not me. What are your goals? And, let's look at this as a flight of stairs, not like a Monday morning where we're going to pull the rug out from the whole thing. So, the issues can be complex, but we live in a culture that likes good foods, bad foods. And, we always tell people individual foods do not affect your health unless you have a bad allergy.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That's one of those messages that we just need to repeat. Probably every episode. Just got to put that on there.
Yeah. And that's another thing that it's like when we do videos, it's like for general population, right? We're not giving individual people, but they will take it as, well, I'm sorry, but that just does not work for me. And there's no way that I can have that. It's like, well, okay, that's fine.
Right. Then do something different.
Yeah. Do something different.
Crazy concept.
But the emotion takes away from the logic.
It does. And of course, whenever people read things, they apply it to themselves immediately. And they have to kind of step back and say, well, this is general information. And how can I apply that general information to myself in a way that works for me?
I had a patient / friend once tell me he was dabbling in different kinds of apps to try to, see he's just a tech guy and he likes this sort of thing. And he was finding himself in groups, like online groups with people who were kind of had a lot of serial dieting experience, kind of chronic, weight loss, losing, regaining, lose, regaining. And he made this really interesting comment. He goes, it's unfortunate that so many people are kind of like preloaded with grenades about different topics in this area, just waiting for something to set them off.
Mm-hmm.
Dieting culture has done a number on a lot of people. So a lot of times what we're seeing is, people's reflection of almost like trauma around going through this sometimes.
Mm-hmm. And, for midlife women, they are coming to that point in their life where they may have had years or decades of experience with different diets. And now they are really behind the 8 ball in a lot of ways because, you're aging at the same time. So you have that going on. And the whole weight control thing is a little bit different or a little bit traumatic, but it can bring up all those feelings, all the past dieting stuff. And it can really inspire disordered eating and crazy diets and, starving yourself to try to get your 30-year-old body back, which is not going to happen.
Unrealistic.
It's kind of sad.
Yeah. I think it's, being 40, 50, you're just consistently looking back at the 18-year-old you that, you're not going to be that again, but you have this vision. And I've been there. You've had a few kids, life passes by. We're just not going to be that 18-year-old body, but we have to focus on becoming better where we are today.
Right. And we're all about health. Appearance is nice. If you look great and you feel good, that's good. But we're talking about setting yourself up so that you can live the next 30 to 40% of your life, which the average woman does live 30 to 40% of their lives after menopause in a healthful way so that you feel good and that you avoid or at least minimize chronic conditions that do, occur with aging, but are exacerbated by menopause, such as heart disease and bone disease.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that actually. So
I didn't realize there was a connection there.
Have you ever wanted to start a podcast? Spotify's got a platform that lets you make one super easily and then distribute it everywhere and even earn money doing what you love. All in one place for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters, and here's how it works. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit episodes right from your phone or computer, so no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating today. Then you can distribute your podcast to Spotify and everywhere else podcasts are heard. Now, what's really cool is video podcasts are also now available on Spotify. And if you want to be taken seriously on social media, you need to have a video presence. And what better way to do that by connecting with people via your video episodes? With Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. And best of all, it's all totally free with no catch whatsoever. And ever since we discovered Spotify for Podcasters here on Cut the Crap with Beth and Matt, we are easily releasing new episodes and distributing them to multiple platforms, and it's never been easier. We highly recommend you give it a try. You can download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started.
Yeah, let's get into the heart disease and bone disease after menopause, and what can we do to help prevent that?
Well, there are two conditions that are, I think, very much related to the drop in estrogen. And as you said, they are heart disease and osteoporosis or bone disease. And the reason for that is because when your estrogen levels go down, several things happen that can affect your heart health. Your blood vessels become stiffer, so your blood pressure may rise for no other reason except for a loss of estrogen. Your cholesterol level may increase, particularly your LDL or bad cholesterol, and that is associated with more clogging of the arteries. So women have like a 10-year grace period as compared to men in terms of, when heart disease becomes an issue. And that's because of estrogen. And when it comes to bone disease, same thing. I mean, as soon as your menopause happens, like there's a huge loss of bone tissue in the first 5 years after menopause. But if you have a lot of bone tissue, if you've been doing all the right things up until that point, that's how you mitigate it. Same thing with heart disease. If you've been exercising and your blood pressure is good and your weight is good and your stress is okay, you're managing it, at least you go into that phase of life in a much better position.
Mm-hmm.
So it comes back to, again, starting more awareness earlier, because, that whole a pound of prevention or an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, kind of trying to nurture some healthy habits that include this eating that we're talking about, as well as like the strength training. We're huge fans of that. It's the only card that women have in their deck as we go through this transition to influence our metabolic rate, 24 hours a day. Plus, physical activity is the most natural insulin sensitizer that exists. Insulin resistance, which becomes more common as we get older, is what causes type 2 diabetes. So, physical activity, and all this stuff is good for your brain. Let's, not forget about that, risk of Alzheimer's and dementia. So from our perspective, a lot of this is quality of life. Like Liz was saying, if you're going to live 30 to 40% of your years, doctors are real good at keeping you alive, but that doesn't mean your quality of life is great. If you end up on a bunch of medications to try to manage this stuff, but there's a lot of disability associated with lack of
going to live your best life during those years.
Yeah. So there's no guarantees ever, but this is a pretty good odds game to play. That if I eat healthfully, and I actually, again, Liz and I talk a lot about, oftentimes we like to focus on what can you add to your diet to improve your health. So we would say so let's look at your fruit and vegetable intake. In our experience, a lot of times people say, I eat fruits and vegetables. And I see it all the time in these questionnaires that I give my private practice people, like, how many fruits and vegetables do you eat in a day? And then I start talking to them about what they're eating. And I'm like, where are those fruits and vegetables? Like 2 to 4 a day. So they'll be like, I had lettuce in my sandwich and I had, tomato sauce on my pasta. So, we would say, well, kind of the low rung for fruits and vegetables is, 2 servings of fruit, 3 servings of vegetables ish. So why don't you just maybe think about, if you don't eat fruit every day, try to eat 1 a day with a long-term goal of eating 2.
But I don't like veggies or fruit, Liz.
You don't?
No, I'm kidding.
Never too late.
I've seen your food.
Wait a minute. I've seen you eat them.
But this is what someone will say to me, is what I'm saying. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What do I do if I don't like veggies?
We have a solution for that. You can say anything to us and we will come up with the plan B, C, and D for you.
So, I love that.
Yeah.
The biggest one is, if you're not dead yet, you're not too old to try something new.
Right. Exactly.
Just because you didn't like overcooked broccoli when you were 5,
at
your grandmother's house, doesn't mean you can't try it again.
Add some seasoning in there and cook it a different way.
It's okay to put fat on your vegetables. It's okay to roast them. I think I roast nearly every vegetable known to man.
It's so good that way.
So easy. They're so easy.
Air fry.
Yeah, or air fry, and you put them in with olive oil, and yes, a little bit of salt. Yes, a tiny bit of salt. And you eat them, right? Or you might eat a double portion of something that you like. I'm telling you, we have tricks for everything.
I love it.
And I like you said the salt, because the salt brings out the natural flavor in it a little bit then too. So they're just not properly salting and seasoning their food.
I mean, in cooking, salt is a flavor enhancer, right? So we learned this in quantity food production. It's a flavor enhancer. And ultra processed food, it's put a lot of salt in it because we took the natural flavors out. So if people, use it on their own, in their own kitchen, and
it's usually fine.
Yeah. Plus there's other things you can use. Like, I'm a huge fan of vinegar. Vinegar has no salt in it. It adds a lot of flavor to things. Lemon. We had some sauteed broccoli with garlic and lemon the other day.
Perfect.
That sounds amazing.
It does.
Yeah. Might have been scallions.
Can you do a little stir fry with that?
Mm-hmm.
We'll make lots of cooked vegetables and eat it with pasta. Like, if we have pasta, we'll eat a lot of vegetables with it because it makes it easier to not eat 2 plates of pasta. And improves the nutritional quality. But I'm really spoiled. My husband cooks a ton at this point in life. He cooks more than I do.
That's okay. Little morsel of
and he's well trained. He knows what to do.
Beans are a vegetable, and a lot of times people don't think that beans and lentils count as vegetables, but they actually do. So
one of the highest fiber things you can eat.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So I remember the thing I put on my Instagram page, a can of chickpeas, and I had another healthcare professional who will go unnamed send me a message about, I'm wondering why you're recommending people eat processed food. I'm like, canned beans are processed foods.
Yeah.
Get your orthorexia off my page.
Every food is processed to some degree. I mean, it's touched by another human being for the most part. It's fine. It's fun.
And they're so accessible. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Cheap, accessible.
People don't like soak their own beans overnight.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I forget, No, I live on
I mean, it's not
canned.
that you can't do that, but those are examples of things that make decent eating feel way too hard.
Right.
Yeah.
And it doesn't.
Unfairly demonizing foods, and because it doesn't take into consideration people's financial status, how much time they have, or anything like that.
Exactly. You're exactly right. Or where they live in the country. Like, for example, we're spoiled because we live in New England and we can get fresh fish, right? We got, I think I got fish off the boat from Gloucester yesterday. And, what if you live in Kansas? Canned fish, canned salmon, canned tuna might be the way to go. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
God help the wild salmon. If all people did was eat the wild salmon, there would be none left. No, seriously. I mean, talk about its sustainability,
Yeah.
Again, it doesn't need to be so hard.
Yeah.
Exactly. And, you can have dried fruits, that counts. Frozen vegetables. We're huge fans of plain frozen vegetables and fruit, especially around here in the winter. Oh, you can't really get a lot of great stuff. But we have our wild blueberries, from Maine, and we have the frozen cherries and things like that. So there's actually zero wrong with that. And that's an easy way to use what you need and not waste anything.
I always have a giant bag of a family-sized bag of frozen broccoli browns from Market Basket.
Oh, yeah.
In my freezer.
To try that.
And you just throw them in a bowl, don't add water or anything. You put them in a glass bowl, you put a plate over it, you zap it for 2 or 3 minutes, and then you throw in an omelet, toss in some pasta.
Yeah.
You got a 5-minute meal.
And frozen vegetables they're just as healthy. I mean, there's no nutritional loss there. Again, we're talking about frozen vegetables, not things necessarily swimming in salty cheese sauce all the time. Occasionally you can do whatever you want, but totally doable.
Absolutely.
I'd like to talk about intermittent fasting and menopause.
Okay, let's go.
Why that is going around.
So is there validity to?
Well, where it's most relevant is for people that are at risk of diabetes, because time of day affects how sensitively people's bodies use insulin to regulate their blood sugar. And so I think it's actually a good thing that they're starting to pay attention to circadian rhythms and things like that, because like 25 years ago, I was observing, wow, the people that I take care of, who are are struggling with their weight often actually don't eat that much. And then I started to realize a lot of it was not eating much during the day, but then, making up for it later in the day. Mm-hmm. So, I don't think there's enough evidence for us to know how much of the effectiveness of, like, we're fans of extended time, you can call it extended time fasting, whatever it is, eating enough during the day so you can hopefully eat dinner and most of the time give your body a break for, 11 or 12 hours.
12 hours, yeah.
So your body, because that's the way it always was. Throughout history, people weren't eating at midnight, like they are now. And so bodies are more oriented to use insulin and metabolize carbohydrates, for example, more sensitively during the sunnier hours of the day. So I think there is, certainly for people who are at risk of diabetes or prediabetes, there's a case there. For the weight loss thing, it looks to me like the evidence is mixed. And I suspect a lot of it is if you just stop eating after dinner, boom, you just cut a chunk of calories out of your diet.
Yeah, people get upset with us when we say don't eat after dinner. I mean, they really could. Some people come at us. And this is the reason why we say that, because it is the simplest thing you can do. You don't have to do intermittent fasting, and not eat dinner with your family because you already ate, everything you're supposed to eat by 3:00. It's more livable. And we say that and people are like, oh, well, if you're hungry, you should eat. Well, it's like, we didn't say that. We said that you should eat enough during the day, especially at dinner, enough protein so that you feel really satisfied, protein and fiber, some fat, that you feel satisfied. And you really are not eating after dinner.
The snacks aren't a requirement.
Right.
It works. Yeah, you're right. It actually works.
Yeah.
I love to eat at night. That's like, I would love it if I could have like a big bowl of ice cream and a brownie every single night. But oh God, but I can't. Because as you get older, your calorie margin becomes thinner. And I just am not moving around enough during the day, like running, 10 miles a day to do that. So I can't do that. So you have to make those choices for yourself. The thing about intermittent fasting is that, some people don't eat at night, but some people push that to like, they start eating at, 12 o'clock.
Yeah, that is a total. I mean, so if you're going to get into
that's the most common one, right?
Yeah, like 12 to 8, which is really, so I'm satisfied after like 30 something years of reading research on this, that people should eat in the morning. There's a decent amount of evidence suggesting that eating a good breakfast may set the stage for your hunger management throughout the day. It's a good opportunity to get some protein and fiber and healthy stuff into you. And, if you don't eat enough during the day, why would your brain not be hungry and want you to continue to eat? I think a lot of people are eating after dinner because they're under eating during the day. But like we're living in stressful times. A lot of people are eating after dinner because it's relaxation.
Yeah.
Or it's the transition to the more relaxing time of the day, or it's a mindless eating in front of the television. So again, that's the behavioral part of it. What are you eating because you're really hungry? Are you eating because it's soothing your nerves somehow? So to some extent, we all do that, I mean, like food, we're supposed to.
It's delicious.
But if it, somebody has a behavioral pattern of using food as the way they get themselves, talk themselves off the ledge, and that's something that they would likely benefit from talking to somebody about, to learn how to deal with their stress and anxiety in ways that don't
better coping mechanisms
be the go-to. And often that happens at night.
But Beth, you asked why, why is it so popular with menopausal women? I just think it's partially desperation, vulnerability, and they want a quick fix. They don't know how to control themselves mainly. So they're just going to give themselves an arbitrary cutoff. The other thing, in terms of eating, the other thing that is, the thing about intermittent fasting that we always say, it's about when you eat. It's not about what you eat. No one's giving you any guidance about what you're eating. So if you're going to eat for just 6 hours out of the day, you better make damn sure that all
quality
nutrients, right? Right. That all of your protein is there.
It's hard to get in if you're, skipping breakfast. I don't know. Try to eat 80 grams of protein at 4 p.m. is
I've seen one person who I thought the total quantity of healthy food that they were eating was not suffering because they were eating in an 8-hour window. I've seen it one time. And that's because in her 8-hour window, she was eating 10 and 6. She was still eating 3 meals. She was still having 1 or 2 snacks with protein. You never see that. So intermittent fasting is a really good example of something that takes something with some real valuable aspects to it, like trying to align our food consumption and metabolism of food with our body's natural rhythms. But people always have to then crush it into something that's unsustainable. Okay, you're going to fast every other day. It's you know what a fast is? A fast is less than 25% of your calories for the day. Who's going to do that every other day? Who's going to do that even 2 days a week?
Plenty of women do that. They do it and then they go crazy on the other days and they just eat whatever they want.
It's just not sustagetting.
And so it's not healthy. I mean, it's wicked unhealthy because, how are you getting enough calcium? How are you getting enough protein? How are you getting enough anything unless you're loading up with supplements and powders and things like that? So we're not big fans, but like Hillary said, it has a nugget of interesting science behind it, but there's really no evidence that you have to do it to lose weight. You can just cut calories gradually every day and come out with the same result.
I would say too, that I've never seen anybody, eat from 8 to 4, forever be able to not eat dinner with their family.
I know.
That's what eventually kills it.
That's a really important aspect there.
I can't eat with my family. It's okay, so is that sustainable? No. Is that good for your relationship? No. Are you there to model healthy eating for your kids, family meals?
Can you imagine, you're the mom and everyone's sitting there eating, sorry, I can't eat with you guys.
So insane.
I mean, as a child, I'd be like, what the fuck is wrong with mom? She doesn't eat with us.
Mom is starving herself.
Oh my God, what's happening to her?
What's the matter with mom? Which a lot of teenagers are saying anyway, as their mothers go through perimenopause.
You don't need to give them more ammunition to question.
Yeah.
I even talked to my fertility patients about this, very sensitively, of course, but, we talk about, wanting to have a baby is a really motivating time. It can be paralyzingly stressful, but it can be a very motivating time. And then it's a good time to stop practicing the way you're going to want to model for your kids, because kids learn to eat with their eyes. And by that, I mean, they watch you. So you can say whatever you want about, I'm going to eat this, but you guys, you might hear a lot my kids eat great. Oh no. While they're doing something really dysfunctional with food. I'm like, you know what? Kids have eyes too.
Oh, yeah.
So, it's just, again, it's a lot of it is dealing with trying to develop a more healthy relationship with food and behaviors that you're basically eating decently, but you're still living an enjoyable life.
Right.
Yeah.
It's all about the behaviors, and the two big things that I've heard here about our diet is the behaviors. So our relationship with food and how we're behaving around it, and then adding things into your diet too, and not taking things away or restricting things, right? But not even just your diet, but it's your lifestyle too, with quality movement, maybe daily walk or more strength training, perhaps, if you're not doing that currently, because as you were talking about earlier, that's going to help with your bone density and sarcopenia, losing muscle mass and things like that, and more health benefits, of course.
Yeah, I think at midlife, women can get really overwhelmed by all the things they should do. You should do this and this and this and this. And it's a lot, especially if they've kind of sailed through their 30s and 40s without a weight problem. They didn't think too much about it. They exercised a little bit on and off. And then all of a sudden, bam, they have all these issues, and diet and exercise could actually help them out. So you just start where you are and do what you can with your time and your resources and your mental attitude towards it. So we're not saying, oh, everybody do, these new 10 behaviors, because you can't. It's
right.
too much, and you'll
start
quit.
where you're at. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, if you are eating healthfully most of the time. So like even the USDA that makes the dietary guidelines, I was reading something that said if 85% of your calories are coming from foods that are bringing along some good nutritional attributes, we all have about 15% of our calories, to kind of mess around with.
Those fun foods.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, because we're supposed to like food.
I like food.
Right. I think we all like food. That's
college. But no matter what your weight is, if you're eating healthfully and you're physically active and you're making a reasonable attempt to get a decent amount of sleep and you're socializing with other people and doing all these things are good for people, you're going to be a healthier person no matter what your weight is. Like we have evidence to tell us people with prediabetes who start exercising, even if they don't lose an ounce, are much less likely to develop diabetes. So we have to try to disattach the value of healthy eating and exercise to weight so much.
Yes. Thank you.
And say,
Exactly.
There's so many other things going on that can affect how you feel in your body, no matter what your weight is.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. That's a hard concept for people to wrap their heads around, though. And that's because for the longest time, the last few decades, especially with diet culture in the 90s, especially, your health and your worth was equated to your weight.
Yeah, and it still really is a lot. So those are the women that are becoming perimenopausal now. So
Right.
they've kind of grown up with that. I mean, I'm not going to say we didn't grow up with that. We definitely did. I mean, my mother was always on a diet. And my
mother did too.
Yeah. Oh, your mother did too?
Yeah.
Oh,
She had
okay.
6 kids, and she'd make us this delicious dinner, and she'd have like the lump of cottage cheese, dry burger, and like.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God, my mom too. Oh my God. Mm-hmm.
She's not, she's 85 and she's in great shape and she's not scarred, but I remember looking at ladies magazines back in those days.
Yeah, Women's Day.
I'm like, Mom, what are these little chewy things called? AIDS.
Yeah,
Remember
AIDS.
that?
My mother was
AIDS. They were like
AIDS,
speed.
They were like, they had like
like
caffeine in them or
like-
something. Yeah.
Like no-dos type stuff.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
They're like diet things.
Yeah, but they were like candy. They tasted good. I mean, I ate one or a couple.
Uh-huh.
We've
One
all
or
been
two
there,
or
done something
3 or
like that,
4.
right?
Your hair was standing
I
on
had
end.
a few. I mean, and not to shit on cottage cheese, because like we really love cottage cheese. Like that is one of our favorite foods, but eating it for dinner every night when your family's eating other things.
Oh, I know. Cottage cheese and pineapple was my mom's thing. And or she put the cottage cheese in the cantaloupe. And I was like, that's all you're eating right now? That was her meal. Like
I love that for a snack or as a side to my meal.
I actually had it for lunch today. It's like one of the quickest lunches that I can do. I'm like, oh God, lunch. Ugh, what am I going to eat?
I will say though, it's the most emotional food we've had.
Really
I told you this. I've been talking to people for 30 years about what they eat. And you say cottage cheese.
They say,
and some of them will go like, oh my God, I love it. And others look at you like you just shoved a hot poker in their eye.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, I love it. Definitely see
too.
people that just get grossed out by the even thought of it.
Some people are textury people.
Yeah.
The
Blend
same
it.
people that don't like hummus and they might not like yogurt.
yeah,
Because it's
we don't know. We
mushy.
can't identify with those
No.
people, but we get it.
Yeah. Totally.
I'd like to actually quickly talk about supplements during menopause. And I personally used to be like a supplement addict, obsessively buying supplements for no apparent reason other than, thinking they're going to be like the next best thing for me. And they never were. But that's a question that I get asked a lot. Is there any supplements that people should be taking, women, for example, during menopause?
Yes.
Okay. Yay. Okay, let's get into it.
But, as you know, nutrition is relative and so is supplement use. So let me start with the biggies, which is probably calcium and vitamin D. If you're not getting the equivalent of like 4 dairy servings a day, you probably need calcium. So, and that doesn't mean you need all of your calcium as a supplement. It means you have to kind of sit down, maybe with a dietitian or maybe with yourself, and figure out how much you need based on your calcium consumption from food. Vitamin D, yes, right? Always, because it's next to impossible for anybody of any age, really, to get all the vitamin D they need through
I started
food.
supplementing with that within the last month, actually, because the dietitian on my team was like, Matt, I don't care if you think you're getting enough from your diet and your lifestyle, you're not.
You're not.
Especially being in Ohio.
Human beings are supposed to get it from sun exposure.
Right.
And evolution's slow. Our body still thinks we're Stone Age people, running around naked
At the equator.
And we're not. So anybody who lives above the latitude of like Los Angeles, Atlanta, or something, and
DC,
does not get enough sun exposure. If you wear sunscreen, like we're told to do, that blocks vitamin D synthesis. So given that human beings aren't supposed to eat it as much as synthesize it, that's why low levels of vitamin D are extremely common.
Extremely common. So that all of that speaks to bone health, but also just overall body health with vitamin D. That's another whole podcast, I think.
And vitamin D levels
definitely
right now, they're lowest in the month of March.
Okay.
So the other supplement that I would recommend that really doesn't so much have to do with being, menopausal would be omega-3 fats. I mentioned that the risk for heart disease does go up. And if you're not eating fatty fish, twice a week, you should probably consider taking omega-3s. Again, not huge doses. None of these things have to be huge doses. You just have to get enough. Vitamin B12 is an issue for all people over age 50 because of a condition called atrophic gastritis, which becomes more common. And what that means is you can't cleave or break off the vitamin B12 from things like meat or fish or any other animal food as well as you did when you were younger. So the recommendation is actually to get half of all your B12 from synthetic sources. So that could be fortified foods or supplements. So that could be part of a multivitamin too. So, and that helps prevent nerve damage, which is, irreversible. So we want to protect our nervous system.
Particularly important if people are taking omeprazole or Prilosec all the time, those kinds of things for reflux, interferes with B12 absorption, as does a medication called metformin, which is a kind of first line diabetes drug. Both can create vitamin B12 deficiencies long term if you don't supplement.
And this is something you don't really hear a lot about, but we're like huge drug diet, interaction people. We talk about it in the book a lot, and we say you've got to ask your pharmacist. You've got to ask. Well, don't ask your doctor. I would say ask your pharmacist.
Yeah,
the pharmacist will either know or look it up. So it all depends. And then there was a really interesting study about a daily multivitamin, which really was not over the top in terms of nutrients, like 100% or less of the daily value, helping to actually preserve cognitive function. So taking a daily multivitamin. So, it all depends on the way you eat. If you skip an entire food group, you definitely need either a multivitamin or whatever you're leaving out from that particular food group. If you're a vegan, you definitely need supplements.
And they don't compensate for poorly balanced diets.
No, they're supplements.
They can fill gaps, but the supplements
Thank you. Yep.
serially don't.
Good to know.
They don't.
It's just that a supplement.
Right.
Get your ducks in order first.
Master the basics, you guys, with your fruits and veggies, and then
eat your fiber,
And speaking of fruits and veggies, you really can't take so many of the benefits that occur in fruits and veggies in a pill. Like you can't get a pill of phytonutrients, which are plant compounds that occur only in plants. And you really need to eat the food, the matrix of the food is really
the bulk,
I mean, there are tens of thousands of these compounds in plant foods, these phytonutrients. They give plants their color and their smell and their taste. And they combine in countless combinations in individual different foods, which is why we say, eat according to the rainbow, eat a variety of colorful fruits and vegetables, as opposed to eat your isocyanates and your resveratrol. Like, again, it comes down to
simplifying it.
2 servings of fruit, 3 servings of vegetables, yes. Vary it up by season. Maybe that'll make them taste better. But these phytonutrients cannot be shoved into a pill. And I think it's worth noting that there is some research to suggest that individual high doses of certain nutrients may not be safe, and may not be helpful. So just because something is natural doesn't mean it's good for you or safe.
That's always kind of blowing my mind when I see some of these multivitamins that have 500% of your daily value. I'm like, why? Like,
why? Exactly why?
It gives people peace of mind, but a lot of that money would be better spent on produce.
Mm-hmm. And also, we should talk about probiotic supplements as well. We do not think that you should be taking, going out to CVS or Walgreens or Walmart or whatever and getting probiotic supplements right off the shelf. There isn't a lot of science behind them, but they are strain specific. And what I mean by that is that there is some research that says that certain strains, certain types of probiotics are beneficial for certain conditions. And, there's absolutely no consensus about what a perfect gut is, but in search of a perfect gut, which, everybody seems to be, they're grabbing all these supplements off the shelf and not eating enough fiber or not eating enough yogurt.
Health supplements are huge.
Yeah, they really are. And you know what? They can actually mess with the community of microbes.
Well, the hype is way ahead of the science. Like if you say, I have a gut problem, I'm going to go to Whole Foods and try to get a probiotic. It's really like there are some individual specific conditions where certain strains have been beneficial.
Right.
For things like antibiotic-induced diarrhea, C. diff infections and things.
Irritable bowel
disease. A lot of people are kind of like, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, which one of these?
But people are just running to the CVS and buying probiotics because without any of these conditions that you speak of,
Exactly.
I mean, it just, it's a crapshoot.
Yeah.
Hillary,
no pun intended.
That's not the best word.
I love it actually.
Right.
But you also, Liz, mentioned the book that you guys wrote together.
Yeah.
Could you tell us about that?
Sure. It's called The Menopause Diet Plan, A Natural Guide to Managing Hormones, Health, and Happiness. And it's got some guiding principles in it, many of which we talked about today. Eat according to your circadian rhythm as much as possible. Eat a balanced diet that's mainly plant-based, but not devoid of animal foods. Get enough protein. We've designed it so that it's higher in protein because as we get older, we need more protein and we want to make sure women are getting enough protein. It's not low in carbohydrate. It's moderate in carbohydrate. And we encourage people to eat carbohydrates because we love them. And, it's also about fun. We don't want to take anybody's fun away. This is not a terrible time of life. We just want everyone to be, healthy from here on out. So we wrote Hillary wrote a chapter on cancer. Menopause doesn't cause cancer, but women are aging and age is a risk factor for cancer. So they want to know about that. We have a chapter on brain health, a chapter on heart health, a chapter on diabetes, a chapter on weight management. That's the first chapter.
Supplements. But then, at the end, we pull it all together and just show people, see all these diseases we just talked about? They're all benefiting from this plan. And again, I go back to this.
Yeah.
This balance play with my brother-in-law, David Parmentier, who's a graphic artist extraordinaire, drafted up this plate for us. And it's like a simple visual. These are infographics, like a picture of a plate that, is cut in half and then cut in half again on one side. Half the plate is fruits and vegetables. Though we separate them out, give people ideas, a quarter some sort of protein, a quarter some sort of healthy carbohydrate.
And the healthy fats. Yeah.
And then,
put that in there.
But these things look simple, but they have a ton of science embedded in them. It's just people eat off of plates. They don't eat off of pyramids and things like that.
Yeah.
So, again, and there's lots of recipes, most of which are Liz's amazing incarnations and lots of examples of, snacks. And, we try to make it doable where the rubber hits the road.
Sounds great. Where can people find your book?
Anywhere books are sold.
Yeah, on Amazon or
Okay.
It's in bookstores. I've seen it in bookstores. So.
Look at that.
Awesome.
That's going to be a cool
No,
feeling.
actual hard.
yeah, it's nice.
Well, congratulations on the book.
Thank
I know.
you.
Thank you. Thank you.
If our listeners would like to learn more information about you, where could they head to do so?
So on the 3 social media platforms that we're on, we have the same name across all of them. So on Instagram, it's Menopause Diet Plan. On TikTok, it's Menopause Diet Plan. And on Facebook, it's Menopause Diet Plan.
There
Just
we
to
go.
keep it simple.
Okay, so you guys are on TikTok.
Yeah.
All
I'll have to give you a follow there.
Yeah.
Love
No
it.
dancing. No dancing.
We don't
No
dance
dancing.
either.
We don't dance either. Yeah. No.
We're strictly against dancing
Well, we're not against it. We're just against it in
for
public.
ourselves. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. On TikTok. Yes.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
I would say Instagram is the best place. So Menopause Diet Plan on Instagram.
Okay.
Come
You got
over,
it.
ask us questions. We'll talk to you.
And you guys are located in Boston.
Yes.
Awesome.
Very cool.
All right, ladies, thank you so much. And we will see you soon.
Hope you enjoyed this episode, so why not share with a friend who needs to hear it? Send us a DM on Instagram or email us at cutthecrappod@gmail.com and join our Patreon at patreon.com/cutthecrappodcast. As always, we appreciate you and thanks for being here.